On December 26, 2023, a 14-year-old boy named Caleb received a high-end camera drone as a late Christmas gift. Caleb lived in a dense suburban neighborhood in Seattle, where the houses were built very close together. Excited to test the 4K camera, Caleb flew the drone from his backyard straight up into the air. He spent 20 minutes flying over the rooftops, testing the range. Around 4:30 p.m., as the sun began to set, he decided to bring the drone back down. On its descent, the drone hovered near the second-story window of the neighbor across the street. A man named Mr. Henderson, who was known for being quiet and keeping his blinds closed. Caleb noticed on his controller screen that Mr. Henderson's blinds were slightly open. Curiosity got the better of him. He hovered the drone closer. The live feed showed the interior of Mr. Henderson's master bedroom. At first, it looked normal, but then Caleb saw Mr. Henderson standing in the middle of the room. He wasn't alone. He was holding a large, rolled-up carpet that seemed incredibly heavy. Caleb watched as Mr. Henderson struggled to drag the carpet toward the closet. Suddenly, a human hand flopped out from the end of the roll. Caleb gasped and accidentally jerked the controller. The drone buzzed loudly and hit the window glass with a thud before stabilizing. Inside the room, Mr. Henderson froze. He looked slowly toward the window. He locked eyes with the drone's camera. Panic set in. Caleb immediately hit the return to home button. The drone flew back to his yard. Caleb grabbed it, ran inside, and showed the footage to his parents. They called the police immediately. When the SWAT team arrived, they found Mr. Henderson in the backyard, digging a hole. The carpet contained a life-size silicone doll. It wasn't a murder. It was something far stranger. Mr. Henderson had been treating the doll as a real person for years, and he was burying it because he had bought a new one. While no crime was committed, the neighborhood never looked at him the same way again, and Caleb never flew his drone near those windows again. For Sarah, a 27-year-old nurse working night shifts, her days off were usually spent sleeping. In February 2024, she rented a basement apartment in an older Victorian house in Toronto. The landlords, an elderly couple, lived upstairs. The apartment was cozy, but the soundproofing was terrible. Sarah could hear the couple walking upstairs, their TV, and even their muffled conversations. One Tuesday afternoon, Sarah was home alone. The landlords had gone on vacation for a week. She was enjoying the silence. Around 2:00 p.m., she heard a click coming from the shared laundry room that connected her apartment to the upstairs main house. She assumed it was the water heater. She went back to reading. An hour later, she heard footsteps directly above her head in the landlord's living room. Heavy, boot-clad footsteps. Knowing the landlords were in Florida, Sarah texted the landlady, "Hey, did you send a maintenance guy over?" The reply came instantly, "No, nobody should be there. Call the police." Sarah grabbed her phone and retreated to her bathroom, locking the door. She called 911. While she was on the line with the dispatcher, the footsteps moved. They went from the living room to the stairs leading down to the laundry room. Then the doorknob to her apartment jiggled. It was locked. A heavy silence followed. Then, Sarah heard a voice. Not from the door, but from the air vent in the bathroom ceiling. "I know you're in there, Sarah. I can smell your shampoo." It was a man's voice, raspy and close. He wasn't just upstairs. He had found a way into the ventilation system. Police sirens wailed in the distance. The man cursed and ran back upstairs. By the time officers broke in, the back door of the main house was wide open. They found a sleeping bag and food wrappers in the crawl space between the floors. The intruder hadn't broken in that day. He had been living in the space between Sarah's ceiling and the landlord's floor for weeks, listening to everything she did. Camping in the off-season has its perks, fewer crowds and total silence. But for Mark and Lisa, a couple from Colorado, their trip to the Rocky Mountains in November 2023 turned into a survival situation. They set up camp 5 miles off the main trail. It was freezing, but they had a heated tent. On the second night, a heavy snowstorm hit. Around midnight, Mark woke up. He thought he heard zippers. He lay still, listening. Sp. It was the sound of a tent zipper, but not their tent. It sounded like it was coming from about 20 feet away. Mark sat up and shook Lisa awake. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" she whispered. "It sounded like another tent being set up right next to us." They unzipped their window flaps slightly. It was pitch black and snowing hard. Mark shined his high-beam flashlight into the clearing. Standing just 10 feet away from their tent was a man. He wasn't setting up a tent. He was standing perfectly still in the snow, wearing no coat, just a t-shirt and jeans, staring at the ground. He was shivering violently, his skin turning blue. "Hey!" Mark yelled. "Are you okay?" The man didn't look up. He just started walking. Not toward them, but in a perfect circle around their tent. He walked with a stiff, robotic gait. Mark grabbed his flare gun. "Back off!" The man stopped circling. He slowly raised his head. His eyes were rolled back in his head, completely white. He opened his mouth and let out a sound that Mark described as a digital screech, like a modem connecting, but coming from a human throat. Then the man turned and sprinted into the dark woods, vanishing instantly. Mark and Lisa packed up in record time and hiked back to their car in the dark, terrified the entire way. When they reported it to the ranger station, the ranger went pale. He told them that a hiker had gone missing in that area 10 years ago, and he was known for sleepwalking. James, a 30-year-old software developer, worked for a mid-sized tech company in Austin. He often stayed late to finish coding. On March 14, 2024, he was the last one in the office at 11 p.m. The office was an open floor plan with rows of cubicles. James sat in the back corner. He put on his noise-canceling headphones and started typing. Around 11:30 p.m., he noticed a movement on his monitor screen. It wasn't in the code. It was in the reflection of the dark screen. He saw a figure walk past the aisle behind him. James took off his headphones and spun around. "Hello, Dave? Is that you?" Silence. The office lights were dimmed, but he could see the rows of empty chairs. He assumed it was the janitor. He went back to work. 10 minutes later, his office chat app, Slack, pinged on his computer. It was a message from a user named Admin. The message read, "You have terrible posture, James." James froze. He typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly, "Turn around." James jumped out of his chair and ran toward the elevator. As he sprinted past the conference room, the glass walls revealed a man sitting at the head of the table in the dark. The man was waving at him. James didn't stop to look. He mashed the elevator button, but it was too slow. He took the stairs, running down 12 flights. He alerted security in the lobby. When they searched the floor, the man was gone. But on James's desk, someone had left a Polaroid photo. It was a picture of James taken from underneath his own desk, looking up at his legs while he had been working. The intruder had been hiding under his desk for hours before revealing himself. Emily, a college student, made extra money by pet sitting. In January 2025, she was hired to watch a golden retriever named Max at a luxurious townhouse in Chicago while the owners were in Europe. The townhouse shared a wall with the neighbor on the left. The owners had warned Emily, "Max barks sometimes, just ignore him." On the first night, Max was calm. But on the second night, around 3 a.m., Max stood in the hallway facing the shared wall. He began to growl, a low, guttural sound. Emily tried to pull him away. "Max, come here!" Max lunged at the wall and started scratching the drywall frantically. He wasn't barking at a noise. He was barking at a specific spot on the wall, about eye level. Emily dragged him into the bedroom and locked the door. The next day, she inspected the wall. The drywall where Max had scratched was damaged. She noticed a tiny, almost invisible hole in the plaster. It looked like a nail hole. Curious, she put her eye up to the hole to see if she could see into the neighbor's house. She expected to see darkness. Instead, she saw an eye. Someone was standing on the other side of the wall, looking through the same hole, right back at her. Emily screamed and stumbled back. From the other side of the wall, A man's voice began to laugh softly. Then, she heard the sound of a heavy sledgehammer being dragged across the floor next door. Emily grabbed Max and ran out the front door, leaving all her belongings behind. She called the police from her car. Police investigated and found that the townhouse next door was supposed to be vacant and under renovation. A squatter had broken in and drilled peepholes into the walls of every room adjoining Emily's rental. He had been watching the homeowners, and now Emily, for months. The scariest part? The hole in the bathroom wall was drilled directly facing the shower.